this little guy has been in my niece's possession for the last 2 years. So I went back to the video of when I unboxed this, and I found out that I unboxed it. The timestamp on the video is for April 16th, 2016. So it's been almost to the day 3 years since I purchased this. I'm going through some allergy issues like always here, so bear with me. So this is a Mr. Darcy Burgundy in the Pocket Deluxe. And I did have it embossed right here in the front. Make sure I'm in frame. And it says live the life. And that to me just means live the life you want to live and work towards that every single day. So I did have to go ahead and clean this up. I went ahead and I took a baby wipe, because I think I saw that in one of Chic Sparrow's videos before, and I wiped it down on the outside as well as the inside, and then I went ahead and I took some of their salve. I think I have it, yeah, that I purchased from them last year, or maybe it was during Thanksgiving for, you know, Black Friday or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, I'm not a super fan of this stuff. I mean, it works, but I mean, I'm just not a fan of the smell and everything else. I know that that's going to happen no matter what kind of salve you use, but you know, whatever. I thought it would be interesting to do a video about how things age. So my niece has had this for 2 years, and I mean, she wasn't gentle with it. I was never gentle with it when I had it. I hated this notebook. If you ever watched the video of the unboxing of this, you know I hated this notebook. People were not fans of mine after I did my review because I was just like not excited about this. So this was in my very early years of having TNs. I think this was one of my first notebooks, maybe like in the top 3 anyway. And I just didn't know a lot about leather or TNs at the time. And I didn't realize that things like this cannot be manufactured the way plastic can. For instance, leather is going to have its own variations. Sometimes some leathers are going to dye better than others, or darker or lighter than others. It happens. So I wasn't really aware of all of that stuff at the time. I thought I was going to get a notebook like I had seen in other people's videos, and that wasn't the case. I was not happy about that. And so I ended up trying to return it and having a big ordeal with that. And I ended up just keeping it because I didn't want to deal with the hassle of having to pay to send it back and all this other stuff. And I gave it to my niece. I gave it away so I didn't have to look at it anymore. So basically what happened was there were these variations in the front, right here and right here. So the leather has darkened significantly since I first got it. I was watching the video. It's a little bit hard for me. Back then I also wasn't really aware that people on the YouTube were going to be changing their white balance and changing the lighting to their videos in the editing process. So sometimes leathers and colors look different on camera than they are in real life. And so, I mean, that was also something, like, I was young and I just had no idea. So it has darkened, in my opinion, since then. I think I used a light in that video, so I can't really say for sure. But I mean, it's definitely darker. What do you guys think? Do you guys own a burgundy? Does this seem a lot darker than the one that you possibly have now? Anyway, there was a variation here and a variation here and here. You can kind of see them. This one goes all the way across. I'll try to pick it up and move it around. And it was more apparent back then. So the color of the burgundy really reminded me of something grotesque. I'm not kidding. So here in Colorado, we do a lot of hunting. And so if you've ever done hunting, and even if you haven't, if you've ever seen a video or a picture of the human's muscular structure, you know the one I'm talking about, where they look like they're skinned and it's creepy. That's what this reminded me of, and I could not get away from that. It was flesh. Now I'm aware that sounds hilarious because obviously it's flesh. I think it's an animal's hide, right? But it actually looked like flesh. And it freaked me out to no end, and I just could not handle it. And I was like, no, this is a pass. It reminded me of actually the human heart. So here in Colorado, we do a lot of hunting. So I'm very used to seeing, you know, elk or deer hanging in the backyard. So once you skin the animal, the actual muscles, the skin, will start to darken to this color once the air starts to hit it and it's been, you know, aging there for a day or two, and the cold starts to, you know, work its, you know, frostbite magic. It's just, that's what it reminded me of, and I could not get over the fact that this was a living thing. And I know that it's always a living thing, but I don't want to be reminded of it. So this is what my problem is with like snakeskin stuff and alligator stuff. Even when you see, what's that animal? Oh my God, I can't even think of its name right now. Ostrich. You know how it has, like, you can see where they pull out, like they pluck out the feathers. I just can't handle that. I can't handle knowing that it was a living thing. It just hurts my heart and it goes to a very dark place. I know that sounds so stupid, but it did. And so now that it's darkened and it's no longer that reddish color that reminds me of the flesh of an animal, it's not so freaky to me. I know that's so funny. Does anybody else out there feel what I'm saying? I don't even know. I'm just a crazy person. Okay. So anyway, that was like my major problem with it. It did not look the way I thought it was going to look. I didn't want the variations in the leather. I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted it to be pristine, and it just wasn't. And like, since then, obviously I've gotten over those things, but at the time, that was my major issue with it. So basically, I wanted to do this video to do like an update about how I feel about it. It's obviously changed. I would not use it if it still looked the way it did then. And the fact that I wanted to show you how an aged notebook looks that's been very, very used. Of course, this is 3 years. Some people's might look even more beat up than mine does. Who knows? Here you can see, hopefully, where I had a clamp on it. I was just holding back some pages and I didn't realize that it was going to make a huge indentation. And I can't remember if it was like after the first couple of weeks I had it, I don't know, but I was like, wow, never gonna do that again. Here, you can kind of see that there are some numbers where I put a sticky note and I was like probably trying to do some quick math, and you can kind of see that it left an imprint. Also up here you can see a D and an X where I probably again put down a sticky note and started writing on it, probably when I was in the grocery store or something. So this has writing kind of like all over the front. On the back it doesn't have writing, but there's a lot of scratches and marks, and you can tell where probably my keys nicked it a couple of times when I put it in my purse. Just natural scratches that are happening when you're using your notebook and you put it on the ground or on the sidewalk. I didn't care about this notebook, so I was just like rough with it. I was like, I don't like you, so it doesn't matter. When I really love a notebook and it's so beautiful, I don't want to scratch it up or anything. So I really let this one, you know, have it. And it just has a lot of really natural, beautiful, funny marks on it that I can just laugh about it now. So down here you can kind of see, because I think a lot of people are concerned with the stitching. You can see here where there's a lot of wrinkling on the leather near the stitching where I've rolled it. And so because it is stitched, it couldn't move naturally. And so there's wrinkling around the edging where the stitching is. See right there? Hope that's picking up. Some people might wonder, if you're new to the Chic Sparrow world, or you've only had your Chic Sparrow for a while, about the tracking that happens when they feed this through the machine, because that's how they stitch it. So the answer is no. So you can see here where it's been taken into the machine and the machine has stitched it, and you can see that definitely it doesn't go away. It's always going to have those tracks all the way around it, which is a real bummer. I really wish they could figure it out and then it would be flawless. But that's still a thing that happens. And that, I mean, I just knew that that was going to happen. So I've gotten over that. It doesn't really bother me anymore. The elastics are actually the original elastics that came with the notebook. However, they stretched over time. And so because of the weight of the notebooks and of course this holding it closed, I ended up cutting off like almost a ½ inch, maybe, I think, of the elastic on the closure, and probably about the same on the elastic on the inside, because it was so like loose. It really needed to be tightened. So that is one thing I did. I also took a lighter to the outside of this because it had been fraying. You can kind of see, I don't know how well the lighting is. maybe you can't, that there's some little like hairs sticking up from it. And so I just took a lighter and I just lit it up, and all of those little hairs went away for the most part, and it was fine. So the elastic after 3 years is still pretty good. On the inside, you can see that the pockets have held up well. They do stretch a lot more. No problems there with anything. Even the stitching is nice. This is a deluxe, like I said, so it comes with pockets in the front and a secretarial pocket and a pen loop. And again, no issues there. You can see still tracking down there from where it ran through the machine. A little bit of stress around the stitching where I rolled it, but I mean, I did that myself. The other interesting thing is that the pen loop, I just have a friction pen in here, but the pen loop has stayed on, even though I stressed it a lot by pulling it this way. I don't recommend pen loops. I mean, they're just hideous. Look at that. It's just, you know, when you put it in there, it just adds bulk, and then when it's out, it's just gonna stick out for the most part. It's a headache and a half, to be perfectly honest. But it stayed well. I was always concerned, yeah, that this pen loop was going to like rip off or pull off 3 years later. It's still good. The other thing about the stitching is it's very white stitching, and I was concerned about that at first because I thought, oh, you know, it's gonna turn colors, it's gonna get really dirty and gross, and there's not gonna be anything I can do about it. So 3 years later, it's pretty white. So whatever maybe wax or coating they have on the actual stitching is held up well because it's still very white, no issues there. I have seen people actually dye this like a darker color or the color of their notebook. So I'm interested in seeing that video again, because I might do that. I might go ahead and dye it like black or something. I know now that Chic Sparrow is doing more matchy stitching, as before they were doing like this contrast stitching that I wasn't always a fan of, but I wanted the pockets back then, so you didn't really have a choice. So that's also something to be thinking about. I thought I'd put notebooks in here to kind of show you how it looks when it's full. It still holds its shape nicely. Molds around your notebooks just the way it should. This has 4 strings in it, so it's not a Pocket Plus, although you can get those. The other thing I wanted to show you was this. I think some people are interested in knowing whether you can put passport inserts into a pocket size, and the answer is yes. Of course you can, and they're not going to move around a lot. So here's how much it moves around if you do that, if you wiggle it. But the truth is, if you flip it back and forth, it doesn't do that. So it doesn't really bother me that it's shorter. If you didn't know, this is a Field Notes notebook. Field Notes and Passport, as far as Traveler's Company is concerned, they're about identical in the width. It's only the height that is different. So in the back here, I actually have this notebook by, I don't know who the company is, but it's sold by Target. Maybe I do. Let's see. That's what it says. But anyway, Target sells these notebooks 3 to a pack. And the funny thing about them is that they are shorter than the Field Notes, and they're also more narrow, which I find to be very funny. So they're like a size in between Passport and Field Notes in height, but they're also more narrow than the Passport because obviously Passport is the same width as the Field Notes. So keep that in mind, but I like to keep this notebook in the back because of my stupid pen loop, and this is why I don't recommend people get them. If I put my Passport back here, which is shorter, so it'll work, but because it's the same width, it's going to hit up against this pen loop and cause a hot mess. But since this is more narrow, it fits really well. Now, certainly you can just cut down your Field Notes so that you can keep an extra notebook back here. And this is just like cheapy paper. So anything I need to just like scratch down and I don't know where it's going to go until later, or I just want to like add something instead of adding it on here where obviously it's marked up my notebook like a crazy person, I just write it back here. I need to do a pen test or a pen's not working and I need somewhere to like scribble to make it right. I do it back here. And then it's easier for me to just slip this out and take it with me to the grocery store because I keep my wallet. I have a regular wallet set up, so I just take this with me and I don't have to worry about taking it off a string, or, you know, if it's piggybacked to something, I have to undo my whole notebook. It's just really simple to take in and out of. So that's sort of why I like the pockets here. The front pocket, I just have this washi tape. The truth of the matter is these are about the size of a card, probably more narrow, but when you put them in here, you have issues if you don't push them down far enough of them getting stuck on this first notebook. And I know that that's very true when you have your ID in here, and it used to drive me insane. And so I never used these pockets for anything anyway. I was just like, who cares? If you have shorter things that you would want to put in here, I might end up putting something in there, but for the most part, if it's not very short, it's going to hit on this notebook, it's going to scratch it, it's going to bend whatever's in your pockets, and I'm over it. So personally, the only pocket I really love is this back pocket. It's the only one that doesn't bother, and I don't mind it at all. However, you can get the same kind of thing with like a Target dollar spot pocket. You just cut it down and put it back there. So you can still get top stitching and not have to have the pockets if that's not what you want, because a lot of times they're just not useful to me. They're more of a headache. They're like the pen loop. They're more of a headache than they actually are useful, but you know, you do you. I will also put a link down below to my video on tabs. Remember when I talked about this? I don't know if you saw that video, but if you're new to the channel, welcome. I mentioned that it's always a good idea to put a little space in between your tabs in the center if you're going to do it like this, so that you can go ahead and rest your elastic and not have it like rest on your tabs. Now these are just a tab that's made out of plastic, so they're not very stiff, so they'll bend very easily, but you don't want it to always like stay bent and drive you crazy. So it's always nice, because you never know what notebook you're going to be putting your inserts in, to go ahead and keep that space in the center, because you can see these definitely do stick out a little bit, and that's because I have this notebook in the back. If I didn't, it probably wouldn't do that at all, but it's just important to be aware of that. Right now, I don't really have plans of using this. I just wanted to set it up to show you how it looked full and how it's kept its shape and how nice it still is. Definitely worth the money. I just, you know, I didn't love it at first, but now maybe I'll give it some love, especially since it's summertime and I want to be, you know, lighter on my feet. And I wasn't really feeling the passport size, but I do have this passport monthly insert that fits nicely in here with all of these other inserts. You probably remember this notebook. I ended up decorating it in another video, but I ended up moving out of the passport size. I had it all set up for like vocabulary, and I never used it. So I put it in here, thought maybe I will one day. I did go ahead and make myself some tabs out of some stickers I had by Journal Inspiration, and I stuck them on these really long post-it tabs, and then I just cut them, and then I cut around them on the top. And I just wanted to see how it looked all full and nicey nice. And I was checking them against this tab back here. So I'm not a super fan of these tabs. I bought them to try them out, and I just don't like how they stick out of my notebook, because I usually throw my notebooks into a bag at some point, and when I do that, it snags on things, it pulls, and it tears my page. It makes me so upset. So if you want to use these at home in a TM that you're not going to be taking on the go, then they work perfectly fine. I mean, they still pinch the page, but I don't know. For carrying them around, I'm just not a fan. I prefer to go with something like this. And I'm starting to run low on the tabs that have like to-dos and all that stuff. So I took things like dreams, which I'll probably use as a reference to something else, because that's the sticker I had. Summer, I want to start getting ready to plan out summer and some things that I don't want to miss out on. Goals, things that I'm trying to finish up this year, and then a notebook, because I'm a realist. I need to start thinking about what has to happen next year, probably more in my writing process than anything else, but I need to get that prepared, because I try to do everything all at once and I get overwhelmed because it's taking a lot longer than I thought it would. And then I have a focus sticker here in the back, which will probably be for YouTube, because I really don't like having YouTube in my big TN. There's just too much space for that. It doesn't require that much. I might be planning in this a little bit in the future now that it's darker and I can handle the way it looks and it doesn't remind me of myself holding a human heart in my hands. I'm telling you, those variations that were in here, they reminded me of tendons that you find, you know, when you see like that. It reminds me of that movie. You guys ever seen, I think it's called, oh, Hollow Man. Remember when they had that ape and he was like tied down to a bed and he started to disappear a little bit. He was turning invisible and you could see his muscle structure and you could see the tendons along with his muscles white, and oh, it just, that's what it reminded me of. And I was like, I have a heart in my hand. It creeped me out. But anyway, so that is how this notebook has held up after 3 years of very hard use. And I mean, it's still worth the money. So, you know, good on them for building a quality product. I'm still not a fan of the pen loop. So what about your guys' notebooks? Do you have Chic Sparrows that have lasted for a really long time? Have some of yours fallen apart? What about other TNs that you have? Do you think other companies have held up better than others? Let us know down below so that we can discuss, because I've gotten rid of pretty much all of my Chic Sparrows. I think it's the only one that I have anymore. And it still, I mean, takes a lick and keeps on ticking. So there's that. All right. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope that this was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.